Okay, here we go. Video number 2, rapid fire. So, this video we're going to be talking about what my plans for TFG are. You guys have heard me talk repeatedly about some aviation type things, and so I'm going to give you the whole shebang on it. So initially I said I wanted to get into some personal level things, and honestly it's not necessary for me to do that because I could tell you about all the financial struggles that I've had while trying to figure out flight training. And the bottom line is that's like everyone who's a first generation pilot who's, trying to pursue aviation as a career that maybe doesn't necessarily have a family friend or a family member who's a pilot that can take them out flying, who owns a $100,000 airplane and has a hangar or tie downs and, has the, all the certs and ratings to go do all that kind of stuff. And again, for me, I also don't want it to be like an excuse thing. Well, I don't have those types of things, opportunities available to me, so that sucks. No, if you have those opportunities, take advantage of them. I don't care like what your background is. Like if you have a goal that you want to pursue and you have the means to make it a reality, go do it. And so again, that's always easier said than done, but this is my version of trying to get it done, right? So I've worked a couple jobs here and there. I'm a professional college dropout. We'll talk about that. So I was going to school at ASU for aeronautical engineering. My dream was always to be a test pilot. So I always thought about just being like a private contractor. There's people who, if you're building an experimental airplane or whatever else, if you need to get an airworthiness certificate, you got to have a test pilot go out and perform certain tests on that airframe and then sign it off as legal and give it its airworthiness. So that was kind of always the idea that I had in my mind. And it wasn't until, I followed the guidance of, high school counselors and my engineering teachers at school, but it wasn't until I started talking to pilots where everyone was like, no, man, like, okay, yeah, it's good to have an engineering background and that sort of thing. But if you want to fly in any sort of regard, you got to go be a professional pilot. Duh. So I initially I wasn't going to drop out of college. I was just going to change majors. As many of you guys might know, ASU has a huge aviation program. So they have dedicated, aeronautical science degree and, a professional pilot program. I was accepted to Embry-Riddle when I was first coming out of high school and I was applying to colleges. I just didn't go because I didn't have the money to go. My scholarship wasn't enough to cover like barely a year there. So that wasn't happening. So ASU was the next best thing. The way that ASU works, and this is kind of what I sort of found out that was a shock to me that I'm assuming is going to be a shock to you guys who aren't familiar with the industry. But so becoming a commercially rated pilot is not, like flight training in general is not post-secondary. It's not vocational. It's not a trade school. So the reason why that's a big deal is because that means that you can't take those loans that are typically available to you and apply it in the same way. So the same way that, if I got the Dean Scholarship from ASU, I would have been able to apply that towards what was essentially $60,000 ground school, which would have been the aeronautical science degree, bachelor's of science degree. But for things like, the written exams, the practical exams, DPE time, instructor time, airplane rental, all that kind of stuff, you can't use those scholarships. You can't even use the loans towards that. That has to be either a private loan, personal loan, or you just, you got to have the money to finance it outright. So what most kids do is either their parents will like refinance their house. I've had, acquaintances who basically just grabbed a bunch of credit cards and racked up and maxed out, $50,000 of debt on each credit card, which I'm sure you can imagine at, 19, 20 years old with very little credit history and, probably no proof of income because you're going to school full time. That's probably not going to be a great route to go, but what else can you do, right? And then you have the other kind of bunch that's out there, which God bless them, I couldn't do it, but working 60-hour weeks, flying full time while doing that, which let alone not only is that just like challenging physically and mentally and all that kind of stuff, but honestly, it's dangerous. And I don't think that's the best way to go about flight training. So there's all these different things in industry. You know, we talk about the pilot shortage, the financing is one big part of it. Second thing is that there's not a lot of exposure to younger kids or to generations about aviation as a whole, right? Like no one's going to high schools and giving talks about becoming a aircraft controller or an A&P, a mechanic, or a professional pilot, or, you know, doing marketing in aviation or any of that kind of stuff. There's always people that are going there telling you which engineering schools to sign up for, or, you know, like medical schools and all that other kind of stuff. But even when you're going there as a kid, you're just beholden to, you know, what the adults in the room are all telling you. And that's just, well, go take this online career test, or, you know, just, you know, go check out these accredited university programs or whatever else. And aviation has always just kind of been that weird outlier. And so, especially if you're a first generation pilot, like I said, you might not have access to some of those things right off the bat. So you essentially don't know what to do. And so this is the big problem, right? So we've defined the problem. Let's talk about what the solution can be and how I think TFG can be that solution. So first things first, let's talk about the website. Let's launch the website. So takeflightgarage.com is meant to be an open resource for any student pilots or anyone who's thinking about becoming a pilot from the ground up. If you have no exposure, go check out takeflightgarage.com. There's a student pilot checklist on there. And the same way that you would get akin to using a checklist in the cockpit is the same way that you use the checklist as you sort of immerse yourself in the world of flight training. So there's a dedicated checklist on there that you can try to follow step by step and go through and hit those certain stages and hopefully begin your flight training career with your best foot forward and with more knowledge than you might have had otherwise. So hopefully it's a good resource for you guys out there. The next thing I want to talk about is there's a petition on there. We'll talk about that in depth in a second, but you know, in another video. But the main thing is that TFG, much in the similar fashion that this channel has been about me teaching about the 944 and just kind of getting information posted out there, has been a practice run for me in what I hope could be, you know, a future of instructing students, to where I might be able to post, you know, in a similar fashion where I might talk to you about what to look out for on the 944, or, you know, certain things or aspects that you need to be careful of between the model years or whatever else. I could talk to you about, you know, making better aeronautical decision-making decisions, or, you know, charting and you know, flight planning and math and all that other kind of stuff in that similar regard. So this for me has been sort of a dry run for teaching in a weird way, because I have no experience with teaching. Like I said in one previous video, where like I feel like every time I'm in here, I'm in a big giant lecture hall and we're all doing a case study on the 944, and it's kind of me teaching you stuff. And so again, like I said, there might be channels out there that are definitely far more polished and in-depth, but this one is just kind of an overview for you to kind of have a sense, an idea of what to look for when you're working on the car. And hopefully I can carry that into doing some, you know, ground instructor augmented study materials. That's the best way I can put it. So on a personal level, that's the immediate short-term goal for TFG, is what it's supposed to be. I haven't done that yet because I don't have a ground instructor rating. I have a private pilot's license, but I don't want to be posting any sort of content, you know, educational or not. I don't want it to be opinionated or in any of that sort of way. I don't want to look at accident case studies without at least some sort of credential that says, hey, I can, in some regard, instruct in flying and all that other kind of stuff. So that's the immediate short-term goal about what TFG can be. But in the next video, I'm going to tell you what I think TFG can be in the long term. And I think it could change the industry. So I'll see you then. Thanks for watching, you guys.